recommend you do what I'm holding in my hand, a pencil or a chalk pencil, or light color pencils are really great as well. They are a lot easier to paint over top of, and you don't want to have to paint over black lines in case you're not ready to say you want to keep them. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is start drawing my lady on here. And I'm going to do a box method, which just means that I'm going to start off with like a gridding process, so that way I can line her up centered. So what you want to do for that is kind of just mark where the center of your paper is, and then mark where the center is, of course, vertical as well as horizontal. So you want to just kind of split it up, which is why I'm recommending at home, make sure you're doing this in a very light line. So don't start with your Sharpie. Definitely pencil, chalk, pastel, color pencil, something very light, so you can paint over any mistakes you make. You don't have to worry about erasing or anything. If you already transferred an image, that's a very nifty thing to do. But I do like the originality. It's almost like with handwriting. If you do the piece in yours, it looks different. It's like kind of putting your own kind of touch to it. Something else I'm going to do that also helps me line up my lady is I make her fro abstract for a second. I'm going to circle it just that way it fills up most of my space. So I just go to the bottom of my canvas and I start drawing out a circle. And I like this X because it kind of keeps me from going too far in. So I'm just doing a circle until I hit the other side of my canvas. So that will be the size of her fro. So it's kind of like a circle sitting off a little bit. So and the good thing is it does not have to be a perfect circle. Technically your hairline, no one has a perfect circle. Again, this is just to save some space for where we plan on detailing her hair at. So I'm abstracting a little bit, which is just a fancy way of saying I'm simplifying a few shapes for you right now. So another thing is right on center is exactly where her neck starts at. So that's where, if you're wondering how I'm lining this up real quick. So something I'm going to do is called just sketching out the lines because you're not always completely certain. So her head shape, I like to make it a little bit like, and I'm going over top these lines. I'm going to make this head shape for you guys real quick with my pencil lines. I'm going to circle out her face to be in the center, but it's off centered. It's going to be on this left hand side. That's why I wanted you to go ahead and mark where center is before you start drawing her head. And you want to kind of draw a person's head angled when you're doing pop art. So it's okay to draw, like for example, an oval. So I just drew an oval on my paper in the middle of my fro so that way I can find where to put her face. When I start cutting in a person's face to make it more realistic, I start cutting in like straight lines in order to actually put some angle and some shape back into it. So what you want to do is draw an oval for how big the face is going to be, and then what I do is go back around the edges and start cutting in like where her cheekbones and things are by kind of giving them some more angles. So I'm working within the oval. So the oval helps to get you started, but no one's head's a perfect oval. So I'm just going around the face and just building in the cheekbones slowly. And if you're just watching me, that is absolutely fine because you're probably about to see me go back over all these lines of a darker pencil. And if I make mistakes, good thing is you're also probably going to see me how I correct them. They're just a part of the process. So cheekbones are about center if you're guessing where they are. So that's why I like starting with that, because it's so easy to find the center of an oval. That's something that lines right up. So what I'm doing is kind of doing parenthesis marks for her cheekbones. And I'm doing these on purposely super dark so you guys can see them. Please don't, you don't have to do them this dark if you're still erasing or moving things around. And then her lips, they're kind of blockish. What I do is kind of start off with two straight lines, top, bottom, kind of like you're doing the letter V. So I do straight lines, and then I go in between my straight lines to do the curved part of people's lips. So there I'm curving the top part. And don't forget, it's kind of like the top part of a heart for the upper part of a lip, and then I cut the center into my lips. And I'm going to do like a U shape for the middle part of the lips and then pull them to the side. So there's lips that connect to your cheekbones. And this is just an under sketch, so it's editable. I would say get a nice sketch that you like going, and then feel free to just use your eraser. For her type of chin though, I am boxing out the bottom part of the oval though to widen that up a little bit. So it's not a pointed chin, it's a box chin. So it's a little bit straighter and has smooth lines that go right up to your cheekbones. And that's also the neat part is every time you want to see whether this sketch on my canvas, I can throw this back up for anyone who likes a second glance. Feel free to be taking screenshots at home. That is okay with me if that helps you save a step so that way you can glance at something, you can look at your phones and so on if you want to go back to something. That's a neat way of doing it. Once I have that, I start from her cheekbone. So here's a cheekbone right here. And this is where I pull her neck from. So if you go straight from someone's cheekbone down, that's usually lined up with your ears and all that. At least for girls, not for dudes. I kind of depends on the guy's face, honestly, when I do that. But at least for her, I start from her cheekbone where we drew in those two parenthesis marks at, and I just go all the way down to the bottom of my canvas, keeping it nice and curved and elegant. But I find where her cheekbone is, and that's where I cut that in. And then since you can't see her shoulders or anything in this piece, I just draw a curved line to connect to her neck. And then I go to the bottom part of this part of her chin and just trace that right in. And what I'm going to do is get rid of the hairline because her hair is not going to be running for her neck, so I just kind of deleted that. However, something else you can do is another curved line is for a shadow. The shadows don't need to be perfectly straight. I'm just going to throw those in right underneath. So there's a shadow under her chin. So I'm just going to repeat those stuff for everyone because that was, a few steps there. So I just like to go back around before I get to eyes. For the lips, you just want to start off with straight lines as to where they are, like you're about to make a triangle, but you curve the inner part like a heart on the top and then a U shape for the bottom part. The cheekbones are two parenthesis marks, so the whole entire shape was an oval, and then you find middle and you cut in two parenthesis marks for her cheekbones. And the bottom part of her chin's a box chin, so what I suggested doing instead of drawing it completely curved, I came in with two short marks on the sides each, and then one long one in order to box out her chin. In order to find her neck, I went back towards you start wherever your cheekbones are that's lining up with your ear. So you can come straight down from your cheekbone and pull a curved line all the way to the bottom of your canvas for her neck. And then you can just curve it up again with an opposite line going the other direction to complete it. And if you're not comfortable drawing necks, the good thing is if depending on how you position the head, you have either more or less neck to draw. It just really depends on how you centered it. So then you got lips, and just make sure you got some space for a shadow line underneath her neck. So there's going to be a shadow right here. And you have a neck line that's going through, that's from the head shape. That's okay to get rid of lines. So we have a lot of construction lines, so you can just erase as you go. And if this is your first time drawing a person in a while, that's why I like basing everything down to simple shapes and letters and things, taking one part of a person's face at a time. Even if you're doing portraits, you really got to just look at one piece of the whole entire face, but not draw it all at once. So that way you can really get it nice and proportionate. So again, cheekbones was getting us started off about center, and then I'm going to work our way up. So we got plenty of room for the background. And this really just takes me back to me and my sisters. We used to draw so much pop art as kids of all my favorite characters on TV and everything, and also my cartoons. So I just loved having fun with it, and it just takes me back to why I like teaching art to kids and adults so much. Just a lot of fun. So for the nose, it's gonna look a little silly for a second, but your noses are like three circles. You have the middle circle, and then there's two circles on the side for nostrils. So what you're gonna do, this one's another one where you're gonna erase the top line. So for a nose, I find out where I want to put it, and I get like a letter C from the lips. So just like the part where you end it a little bit, and where I know your nose is gonna be, I kind of draw like a circle, and then 2 circles on the side of it in order to start building up a nose shape. So it's like 3 circles. And from that circle, you want to kind of like draw an S shape. So hopefully you guys can see that nose within that shape. So an S shape is for the bridge of the nose, and then you want to just draw 3 circles to build your nose up. So you want one big circle in the middle, and then you draw 2 little circles for where your nostrils are. So if you draw it too big, you just refocus it, just bring it down a size. Because within this shape, what I do is I just erase that top part of that big circle and the other one, and then you can keep the bottom lines. So you see that? Now it's a nose because you just take off the bottom half of the circle, and then you can just put nostrils in as like small little ovals on either side. So you just want to erase the top part on the other side, not the side you did the bridge of the nose on, but the other side. You can erase those lines because you don't need them. Because this was just to help you get it proportionate. So you just wanted a mark for where the nose is, and here's another one on this side. So I'm going to move my hand so you can see that. So see, you have your circle complete on this side. You got the S shape still, but I erased everything on the left side at the top. So you already have that nose shape. And then now we don't need the center line anymore because now we have a nose. So I'm just kind of gradually getting rid of construction lines. And remember, this is a really fun fan art piece. So if you've ever seen fan art online, it's all different. I love scrolling through fan art on Tumblr and Twitter. So just continue to kind of take your time with just building up that nose. And I kind of like this is a very long S shape, and you can just use the circles to build up the tip of the nose, and you don't need the top part because there's too many shadows. So this is the part where I would throw in a few more construction lines just to continue building our face, and I'm using straight lines to line up eyes, so that way they're not crooked. You can use a ruler if you have one. If you don't have a ruler, just find something straight, a piece of paper or something. If you're not really good at drawing straight lines, I'm just going to estimate mine. So now that I know where the nose is, I line the eyes up about here. So here is a straight line for where my eyes are going to go, and then I do a second one for where eyebrows are going to go. So you want 2 lines. One's for eyebrows, where you're going to curve them, and then the second one is where you're going to actually put the eyes. So you want 2 lines to help you line those up so they are on the same plane. So we're going to erase probably most of those lines later, but I would wait till after you have eyebrows. But if you just find something straight, the first line, eyeballs, second line's for eyebrows, so that way you can space them well apart. So I'm going to just go ahead and dive right into my eyes now. And so right above the bridge of my nose is where I start sketching like a parenthesis mark. I do how long I want my eyebrows to be. And eyebrows do get thinner the longer they are, so they're a little bit usually thicker. And I raise my eyebrow on the left-hand side a little bit more, and hook it coming back towards the middle. And I just like to leave like a triangle. So if this helps you, one trick that I tell some people to do is you don't need to keep this, but if you draw a triangle right in the middle, you actually will slant your eyebrows better. It will help you from going right into the middle of someone's head and giving them either too bushy of eyebrows or not really giving them enough space in between their eyes. So if you draw a triangle, you know to stay on the outer sides of it, and then you can just draw your eyebrows in as you're filling them in. And I just kind of block the front part of these eyebrows and then fill them in slowly. And I'm going to do it on this other one. I'm just going to slowly fill them in, just like if I had an eye pencil. I don't like lines to get too blocky, but everyone's got a different eyebrow, so it just depends on how you're filling them. So you just want to take your time and get line by line. So there's my fill-in, and see I stayed on the outer sides of that triangle. And then I'm going to erase that triangle now that I got eyebrows I'm happy with, because I don't need this straight line anymore. They're just there to help me make sure it lined up. there's those pieces right there. Move these brushes now as I continue building up these eyes. So right below your eyes, you just want to give yourself about a little bit of like a thumb space. You want to hop down, because if you ever land to like coloring your eyes and everything, you got to remember that there is, before you get the eyeball, you have your eyelid. So you just want to make sure you leave an appropriate enough space for that. So it's like kind of two thumbs hop for me, because it's the blank spot and then it's your actual eyelid that's colored in. And her eyes are slit. So what I'm going to do is come down a little bit lower below where I did that S mark for the nose, since your eyes are within that bridge. And what you do is like a circle, and we're not going to actually need the whole circle. Your eyes are going to be in this side, inside of your eyelids and your lower lids. However, what I'm going to do is cut a line over top of them in order to put them in. Talk about Halloween language right now. So once I have circles, that's not like how much of your eye is going to be showing. I'm going to cut a line over them, so it's like you're putting your eye inside of the lid, and then I cut a lid underneath of it. So that circle just helps me get the eyeball inside, and then I just erase the top part so that way it's within the lid. So just like that. So you see now my circle is squashed a little bit. So I'm going to do the same thing over here. I do like a parenthesis mark, and I cut right over top the top half of that circle, and I pull all the way through. And you know how long your eye is going to be now, because you have an eyebrow to line up underneath of it. So you know your eye's got to stop before it goes on the outside. So now I got the top part of my eye, so I can erase the top part. And then I'm going to curve a little bit upward and then come up from my winged look. There I go. And see, now my eyes are closed. And what you can do now is draw an additional lid on the upper part of your eye. So this is the part that's going to be colored in for you. And I would just do a basic parenthesis mark shape. So there's a parenthesis mark, and then I got this one over here. What you can do after you kind of have her basic faces, this is the part where it's still editable. So you can still go back over lines and change things as you see fit. So you're like, oh, her nose is too big, or it doesn't hook enough. Those are things I would edit before outlining with your black Sharpies. So what I'm going to do is, after I'm happy with all my lines, that's going to be one of the final steps. Within your eyes, if you could also go ahead and mark a secondary circle inside of them and fill that in or shade it in, that's going to be for the pupil. The rest of the eye is green. So you want room for your eye color. So a smaller circle, and then your eye is for your pupil. You can just fill that in completely black. And what I'm going to do is start kind of curling in her hair like clouds, up, down, like you're drawing in hills. I'm going to come on this side too, do the same thing. I'm just going to start curving her hair right over top of that circle line. So give her back her curly hair, and then I come back in on the outer parts of her face and start cutting in her hairline the same way. So up, down, up, down. there's some more. Let's see if I move something up, that's like how I know when to move another line up. And I'm just cleaning up some of my sketch marks so you can see what's clean. So if your chin's too long, that's something you can just move up a little bit. She does have very high cheekbones, so those are very high on my piece. And I'm just cleaning up my hairline because I don't need to circle anymore once I get this part in. You just want as many clean lines to trace for your Sharpie. All the rest of it will get painted over. So it's absolutely fine that if you got like a lot of eraser marks at this point, that's fine because we can completely cover those with paint as long as they're soft. So color pencil lines, light pencil lines, those are good. You want to just kind of Sharpie everything though that you want to keep so it doesn't wash away though. And I know she looks wide awake right now, but that is without her makeup, just to reiterate. I haven't done her winged eyes yet or anything. That's the part you can start tracing in now. So you can just darken up the top part like you're adding on her makeup. So you just want to go to her eyes, and there's no eyelashes right now. Something else you want to Sharpie in. So you just want to do a few on the outer parts of her eyes. So I'm not doing any eyelashes on the other side. And I'm just thickening up part of the line to darken it for eyeliner right now. I have eyelashes to add in. Gonna do some more on the upper part as well. And then I'm just going to come off the sides to finish off her eyelashes. And I'm just hooking them to little parenthesis marks too. So just basic curved lines is what you want to do. Just something repetitive in order to fill in her eyelashes. And you definitely want to wing them. So trying to make sure they go far over their false lashes. So they can be exaggerated a little bit. I don't know how that's looking for you guys, but I hope you're really enjoying your piece. And if you need to edit it, that's absolutely fine. The last step I would do is just make sure you're erasing lines that you don't want to keep, or moving something like her hairline. So there's some of my lines, and then I'm just fixing her neckline over here. So there's my lines. And make sure to just be checking your eyes and making sure they're within the lid. So again, when you did your circles, you drew right back over top of them. So all I'm going to do is just pause for everyone to Sharpie over their lines. When you're happy with the lines that you have, you just want to take a basic paint marker or Sharpie in regular black, and you want to outline everything that we did that you're keeping. Your construction lines will disappear gradually as we paint this piece. So it'll have a nice clean finished look. And I'm just going to leave this piece up for a minute for anyone who still wants to use it as a reference. really hope everyone noted, I made a few mistakes and I just said, okay, the chin's too long or I don't like it. And all I did was simply erase and redrew it back the way I wanted it to. So definitely feel like you can change, flatten, and edit things in this imagery to make it work. I'm just going to move this right onto my desk. So I drew that whole thing with pencil and then we just outline right on top in order to finish those lines. So for the blue, you want to kind of go for a phthalo. So for your background, any pink will do, any yellow, any pop color that you wanted to do will work with this piece, whether you're leaving it neutral or just white. But even if you're doing white, you want to make sure to still coat your background completely and cover your canvas because you don't want any exposed fabric or anything because it does kind of affect the moisture and the drying time. For the middle section, I found like my deepest blue that I had, and I'm just going to completely fill it in. If you feel like your blue is too bright, whites and blacks are there to help you alter a color from its natural tone. So you can bring that color down a little bit in your value scale if you add a little bit of black to it. And I liked because her skin tone is such a warm color, you can definitely make it pop more with a darker blue than with a lighter one. And I just drag my brush whenever I'm next to a line that I don't want to accidentally cover. I just really slow down the pace and drag it along the outside of a line, kind of like you're blue taping off an area that you don't want to overlap. I'm just going to keep pulling this color all the way around the edges. Just doing finally the outer part. And texture is always welcome with acrylic paint. It's something that helps to capture the light and really makes it bounce off the surface of your painting. So if you want to go Van Gogh with it or impressionistic, you can definitely leave quite a lot of texture in the hair to help capture some light and also just give some, fun elements to this piece because this is a reinterpreted pop art piece that doesn't have to be as flat as a print. So that's as dark as I'm going for my blue, and when you do a second coat sometimes it gets a little bit deeper, but this is just my regular blue. And then I would just have a magenta pink, but like I mentioned, have fun with those color tones because these are two that are completely substitutable. It does not have to be the exact same darkness or even a pink background if you so wish. So I'm just going to start mixing for the skin tones. For the skin tones, what I like to do is usually use a yellow. So for brown, like I mentioned before, that if you had a regular brown, you can always kind of add white to it. And then you can use like a yellow, for example, in order to warm it up as you're lightening it. So just to show that. And skin colors, if you think about just people, we got veins, we have blue veins and things like that, and warm reds and pink tones. So you can actually add all those colors into a mixture as well. So you can actually just play with the brown you have in order to find a color that you're happy with. So as you can see, I can get another warm brown or a beige tone from it, and there's some peach tone in this one. So I can actually mix a little bit of pink into this one and add that tone in. So there's more. But you just want to get a flesh tone that you're happy with. So the most important thing is start with brown and white, but don't be scared to add the yellows into it in order to put that warmth tone back into it. So you don't always want to use a color pre-made because sometimes even the flesh tone colors that you see are not correct. If they do happen to sell the skin tone that we're using right here in pre-bottle, which I doubt because I've never seen it, you still just want to have your yellows and things and just add to it until it matches up. The first color I'm going to do though that doesn't need any mixing though is adding yellow and white. So you just want to take your white to lighten your yellow, and you just want to highlight one half of her face. So what I do is take a flat medium brush and I start at the bottom of my canvas and I do the neck first. And I just, as you can see, I use the length of my brush. So it's the exact length of your brush. I start in the middle of her chin and I drag this brush up again all the way through her cheekbone. And the good thing is you, yes, can paint right over top of these Sharpie lines and you will still see your paint. And again, it was yellow and white, and so I'm just doing, well, not even half. It's like 1/5 of her face is highlighted with yellow. And I'm coming up right on the edge of her eye and going right on through to her hairline. Can always touch up the lines later when the paint dries. I can just go back over anything because you will see Sharpie through acrylic paint. So the first half, like 1/5 of her face is yellow and white, kind of like a scrambled egg color. And I do this part first. And the line is so clean because I use the exact measurement of the brush. So that's how much yellow I have is the length of my medium brush. So the trick is to just go ahead and just be content with that size. So how much ever that medium brush covers is how much the highlight's going to be. So I just dragged it straight from the bottom, hit her chin, started on her chin, and then dragged it all the way up to her hairline. And that was yellow and white for that color. Just fill in the rest of her face. So I'm just going to take the same brush after cleaning it thoroughly with some water. And I'm going to pick up my skin tone, and I just like to play with it, add a little yellow or a little less. And I like adding the yellow because it helps relate it to the highlight pop color that you have on the side. So I like to warm up the skin tones, don't usually have enough yellow tone in them like this. So you have to put the little sunlight into them. So I'm just filling in the rest of her neck. And definitely don't get rid of that yellowish white pile. We're going to need it again for your earrings. So I'm just going to save that color right there. So I'm just going to continue filling in these skin tones. And then I'm going to also pause to allow this part to dry before I move on to elements like the lips and the eyes. But I'm just going to continue slowly filling in her face with a warmish brown tone until I completely fill it in. And that doesn't include the whites of the eyes, the green part, or her lip color. So for the eyes and the lips, you just want to be using that color tone from the background mixed with the hair will equal those, so they will really complement each other really well. And then yellow and blue, of course, you can make a little bit of green. You won't need a lot. However, my suggestion for the green is make it bright. So you want to use a proportion of more yellow than blue. So that way the color comes out lighter. And so I'm using a round brush is what I would do. So small flat for the lips and the eyebrows. And I would use a small round brush for the eyes. And we do already have black pupils, which is the correct color we want to have for those. So we're just filling in the eye color and leaving the other part of the eyes white. Deeper tones and just switch away from the lighter yellows and blues that I got so far. And do the earrings with yellow and white. And the first earring is in the middle part of the cheekbone and then it swivels down. So depending on how long the neck is, when you do a letter C, it either goes off to your case or it will land right at the bottom. But it is the letter C since the earring would disappear. You won't see the whole earring. And so I get a nice creamy amount of white and yellow, which also makes it easier to go over top of darker colors. If it doesn't take with the first coat, you can always just let it dry though and do a second coat. One of the great things about acrylic painting, it's so forgiving about things like that. And then the next earring's a little bit lower. I like to make this one on the side of my chin. So I'm just going to continue to redo some of my outlining. I'm just going to move my piece over a little bit so I can pull my painting a little bit closer. And I'm just going to go anywhere that needs a second black coat, which might not be necessarily everywhere, but it doesn't hurt to double check everything. So there's the outer part of the hair completely re-outlined. And I'm just going to work my way in towards the last details we just did because they would be very wet. And I just want to go for a comic book feel. So when I'm going over these black lines, if they get a little bit thicker, I feel like that just helps embrace that look a little bit more. And of course the things that we done a long time ago will be the driest. I'm still just taking my time with outlining and making sure the winged part's really nice on both sides. So I'm just letting my black paint really help to clean up some of my line work. So here's my piece completely outlined. See, there's a big difference. I have to get that final black outline on. So I just went over all the lines that I could see coming through my paint. So some of yours were softened as you did the layers. That's why I love the Sharpie of this piece because it can just pull it straight back. And it really makes your yellow pop quite a bit because of the contrast with it. And the earrings are my last detail to try and drag a line near. And I have two options. If it's too wet, I can always go back in and outline with wet black paint because the contrast would be the same. But hopefully, because I gave them a minute and did everything else, they are cooperating. So I'm going to just continue to outline them. Just making sure to use my rag anytime I accidentally snag paint on my marker so the felt tip doesn't dry out on me. Continue to wipe that off. And I did pre-go over the eyes as well, so those are some details, and I'm just wiping off excess paint that might have accidentally got on my marker in order to pull that off.